What would you do if a bride in a diamond gown slapped a pregnant woman in the middle of her own wedding, right there between the string quartet and the champagne tower, while the groom stood frozen like the truth had him by the throat? Would you keep smiling for the photos, or would you make the music stop? Because I was there, and when that woman lifted her chin and said, "Today I will expose your secrets," the air in that room changed, like somebody cracked a window in a storm. The bracelet snapped, first pearls skittering across marble in every direction, a sound I still hear when the room goes quiet. And then Stella, the bride, lunged again, all glitter and fury, while Kevin, her billionaire groom-to-be, didn't move an inch, not his hands, not his jaw, just his eyes, like he knew something was coming, and it was bigger than vows. The pregnant woman took the hit, steadied herself, blood at the corner of her mouth, and said, "Beat me if you need to, but today this wedding ends. Today, the truth walks in with me." You could feel the orchestra's bow hovering in the air, like even the music didn't dare to interrupt what was about to happen. Wild, right? So here is how we ended up standing in that gold-drenched hall, watching love and money collide in public, like two trains that never should have shared a track. A few months earlier, Kevin woke up chasing a signature that would lock down billions properties and partnerships, a future so shiny you could use it as a mirror. He tucked a brown envelope of confidential documents inside his jacket and took his black car into the city like a knife through cloth, the sun already hot, the street still wet from last night's rain. Then the semi roared past. The narrow road hit a puddle the size of a small lake and buried him in mud. Suit, ruined white shirt, dripping dignity, sliding down the sidewalk like melted wax, the documents safe under his jacket, but everything else a mess. You know that moment when your plans don't just wobble, they implode, and you're 5 minutes from losing something you built your whole life around. That was the look on his face when he saw the small kiosk on the corner. Wood-warped paint peeling iron press, hissing like a patient animal, and behind it, Amara. She wasn't the kind of woman who announces herself, no designer, anything. Just strong hands, a careful smile, an ache in her arm. She never complained about, and a voice steady enough to quiet panic. "Don't worry, I can help you," she said, already laying his jacket on the board like it mattered, like he mattered outside of headlines and leverage. Steam rose, fabric flattened, and for 10 minutes the world made sense again, not because the suit was perfect, but because somebody saw a man, not a bank account. He came back the next day, and the next, and it started as quick fixes, a cuff pressed, a shirt saved. Then somehow it turned into conversations, the kind of small talk that isn't small, when your whole life is performance, and when she started delivering to his mansion, she carried something in with her that money usually chases away. Whether a breeze, real air. It got real the night he learned about her mother gravely ill, bills stacked on the table like a dare. And Amara finally said it aloud. "I can't carry all of this alone," and Kevin for once didn't reach for a solution that looked good on paper. He reached for a card, he called a doctor. He put his name on the line without needing a camera, and that kind of care, it changes the temperature. In a room, it changes people. Later rain ticked down his windshield, while they sat in the front seat, and he said, "I want to know who you really are, not just what you do for me." And she looked down, then up, and their first kiss felt like a promise and a problem all at once, because truth is sweet, but secrets make it expensive, and yeah, that happened. Here's the part money doesn't like you to remember. Kevin had been promised to Stella since before he knew what love cost, 2 families, 1 arrangement. Fathers shaking hands like kings, except Stella's father had already lost his empire. He kept the suit lost, the solvency, and what looked like a partnership was really a lifeline thrown toward a sinking boat. They needed Kevin, and Kevin's parents loved legacy more than they loved the idea of their son choosing his own life. One night around the long table, his father slammed his palm and said, "You will marry Stella." His mother tightened her pearls and talked about bloodlines and stability, and Kevin, who could buy cities, felt like he couldn't afford his own heartbeat. "I already love someone," he said. And they answered with numbers, not words. Love doesn't sustain wealth, partnerships do. If you've ever felt your future traded like a commodity, you know the sound of a heart going quiet. The next morning, government trucks came for Amara's kiosk without warning. Iron jaws on wood. Everything she'd built with her hands reduced to splinters, and Kevin held her shoulders while she shook. "You won't be alone again," he told her. "Stay with me." And people like to imagine mansions are soft places to land, but sometimes they're just bigger stages for cruelty. Stella met Amara in the hallway, like a storm, dressed as a woman, heels clicking, smile never reaching her eyes. "So you're the laundry girl," she said, and she turned the word girl into a weapon. "Since you're already here, you'll wash every sheet, scrub every floor, serve me like the maid you are." And the first poison she ever poured wasn't in a bottle. It was in that permission to treat a human being like a service. Amara swallowed. That fire kept her head down and did what survivors do. She worked. She cried quietly. And then one morning she stared at a small plastic test in the bathroom mirror, hands shaking, and whispered, "I'm pregnant." Like saying it out loud might break the spell or make it real. She hid it because the fear wasn't abstract. It had a face and a last name. "If they find out, Stella will end me. Kevin's parents will toss me out. My mother will die from the news alone." So she folded the truth into silence and hoped it would protect her. But secrets rarely protect the people who carry them. Stella found the folded test wrapper on the kitchen counter near the sink, opened it, and her eyes changed. Not a tantrum, a plan. And when the wedding planning got louder, diamonds on the gown, food for 500 when 100 would attend, Kevin saw what he hadn't wanted to see. He was marrying a hunger, not a partner. That night, when the house slept, Stella walked into the kitchen with a small bottle in her palm, unscrewed the cap. Let a dark liquid slide into containers on the fridge shelf, and stirred with the casual touch of someone who had rehearsed this in her head. Then she left without a ripple, quiet as a thief. Morning came hard. Amara did her chores because muscle memory makes you brave. Sat down to eat a little so the nausea wouldn't win, and the pain hit like a wave pulling her under. She tried to stand, the room tilted, her hands went cold. "What's happening to me?" Her voice barely a breath. "And if it were you, what would you have done? Call for help and risk the wrong person hearing, or wait and hope your body would steady itself?" Kevin's driver reached him downtown. Amara collapsed, and whatever deal was on the table melted to nothing. He drove like a man outrunning loss, lifted her from the tile. In his arms, carried her to the car, and Stella watched from the landing, calculating, learning something she didn't want to know. He loves her. The hospital corridor was all fluorescent truths, no shadows, no spin. Kevin sat hunched with his hands over his face. Stella set a soft hand on his shoulder, like the role required it, and the doctor came out with the voice professionals use when they need to place the blame on fate. "I'm sorry, she didn't make it. The body's already been transferred to family," and Kevin's chest collapsed around the words. The way real grief is messy and embarrassing and loud. He wept like a boy. He stared at the wall like it might deliver him a different ending. That's what the world thought. That's what Stella paid for a clean narrative of tragedy. But behind the curtain, something else happened. The doctor stood over Amara that night with a syringe and a soul he'd mostly ignored for years, and he couldn't do it. Call it a flicker of conscience, call it a memory of why he became a healer in the first place, but he softened, leaned close, and whispered the truth the money had demanded. They paid me to end you. They gave me more cash than I thought I'd ever touch. But I can't. If you want to live, you have to disappear. Do not go back to Kevin. Do not stay in this city. They will try again. Go now. Go home. Hide. Wait. He pulled the drip, steadied her, walked her to a side exit, and sent her into the night with a heartbeat where a grave was supposed to be. That's the twist right there. The death was staged, the villain's victory was a lie, and a man with a stethoscope remembered he was human. Yeah, that happened. Amara walked a dark road, holding her belly headlights, finally cutting through the black, a sleek car easing to a stop. The door opening, a tall silhouette stepping out, and for a second, the night held its breath, helper or hunter fate in a suit. We didn't know, not yet. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. The wedding day looked like wealth, trying to convince itself it was holy crystal and gold, a hall that smelled like roses and risk 500 meals for 100 guests. Because excess needs an audience, and Kevin, at the front, jaw tight, eyes shot with something like truth, and Stella radiant on the surface, brittle underneath, moving down the aisle like a coronation, phones up everywhere, because people prefer to witness history at arm's length, and then the doors at the back opened again. A hush rolled through the room like a wave. Amara walked in thinner eyes, brighter face that had bargained with death, and one hand over her stomach, the other empty, which is to say, full of the only thing that mattered now. And she took 3 steps before Stella saw her, and the sound Stella made wasn't words. At first, it was a refusal, like the universe had broken a rule. Then the words came, "What is this dirty pregnant woman doing at my wedding?" And she charged fury in a gown. Shoved. Amara swung, and the room scrambled back. Security hesitated. The groom froze, and Amara lifted her chin and said, "Go on, hit me if you need to, but I'm still going to speak today, but I will expose your secrets today. This wedding ends." Pattern interrupt. Silence so loud, you could hear a pearl roll under a chair. Amara didn't just show up, she brought a witness. The tall silhouette from the road stepped forward into the light, and it was the doctor, not in scrubs, not hiding, voice trembling, a little words steady. "Stella paid me to kill her," he said. "Paid me to make sure Amara never left the hospital alive. I didn't do it here, is why." And he held up his phone. Not a fancy envelope, a screen, because that's where evidence lives now, in notes and voice memos and time-stamped logs. A quiet recording of a conversation with Stella's fixer in a dim hallway, a bank transfer with numbers that made people gasp, a photo of a small bottle on a kitchen counter, a sliver of a charm that looked obnoxiously like a diamond, and the room shifted 1 inch at a time, from shock to recognition, from denial to the first taste of accountability. Kevin turned to Stella and asked one question. "Did you do this?" And you could watch her try out 3 faces in 2 seconds, innocence, rage, and then a cold shrug. "You think I would risk everything for a maid," she said. And the word maid landed like a slur. And that's when security played a short clip from the mansion's kitchen camera on a tablet. Not perfect, just enough. A figure opening the fridge, a bottle tipped astir, the diamond charm catching the light. And all at once, the wedding became a courtroom without a judge. Do you think that's fair, that money gets to choreograph a crime and then hide behind good taste? Tell me in the comments, because I still don't know how some people convince themselves they're the hero while they're holding the knife. Kevin made a choice that cost him everything, that was never really his. "The wedding is off," he said. Not a whisper, a decision, and he turned to his parents and said, "The arrangement ends here. If legacy needs blood to survive, let it die with me. I won't be a party to this." And you could feel the temperature drop, Decades of strategy washed out by a sentence. Investors in the front row leaned back, calculating risk in real time. Guests pretended to check their phones because people want distance from the fallout they came to watch. And Stella stood there, a statue with a heartbeat facing consequences for once. What came next didn't look like a movie montage with swelling strings. It looked like detectives at a penthouse and lawyers suddenly fluent in ethics. It looked like a hospital board taking calls from reporters. It looked like Amara's mother finally breathing easier because the daughter she thought she'd lost walked through the door. It looked like prenatal care without whispers. It looked like Kevin learning that building a life is different from building a skyline. It's slower, more honest, messier. And he showed up not with rings or headlines, but with presence, with apologies that didn't ask for absolution. With dinners he burned and tried again. With silence when Amara needed to rage because, yes, she had the right. People ask me if they just got back together like none of it happened. And I shake my head because trust is not a switch. It's a bridge rebuilt one plank at a time, sometimes with splinters, sometimes with help. And Kevin did the work, and Amara made him earn the chance to try boundaries and therapy and long drives, where nobody said a word until the sun went down, and the car felt like the only place that made sense. As for Stella, the law did what it could, which never feels like enough when the person in the dock has friends with private elevators, but the recordings and transfers were stubborn. The world didn't move on as fast as she hoped. The alliances thinned, the invitations stopped, and the mirror got mean. Some of you will call her a monster. I call her human, because that's the more dangerous truth. She wasn't born this way. She chose it, one small cruelty at a time. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good, maybe we should talk about what our culture rewards. We cheer excess, then act scandalized when it grows teeth. Before we go, let me put the same questions in your hands, because this isn't just their story, it's ours. If truth interrupted your perfect day, would you let it? Would you cancel the thing everybody flew in for, lose money, and face to protect the person who needed you most, or would you smile for the cameras and promise yourself you'll handle it later in private when there's less fallout? You know what I mean? And what do we do with a healthcare system where one bribe decision could end a life? What do we do with families who dress control up as tradition and call it love? What do we do with the distance between who we say we are and what we do when nobody's watching? When the hall finally cleared, when the florists started rescuing what could be reused, and the staff stacked chairs in quiet rows. I watched Kevin walk to Amara, not with a fairy tale speech, but with a simple ask, not, "Can we go back, but can we start over?" There's a difference. Starting over means we don't pretend this didn't hurt. Starting over means I will stand with you when the next storm comes, because it will. Starting over means the child you're carrying will never wonder if they were an inconvenience. They'll know they were the reason two people finally told the truth out loud. Is that enough for redemption? Maybe, maybe not. That's the argument I hope you have with me in the comments, because stories like this should end in debate, not silence. So tell me, if it were you, what would you have done? Do you think that's fair? Would you stop a wedding if the cost was your reputation, your comfort, your plan? Drop your thoughts below, your anger, your hope, your own stories, from hospital corridors and fancy halls, where people forget how to be kind. Share this with someone who believes money erases consequences. Subscribe if you want more true-style stories, told the way we actually live them, messy and brave and sometimes bitter, often beautiful. And tell me where you're watching from, because voices across cities and villages and kitchens change more than diamonds ever will.